Glad to see I inspire you. Okay, hold on one second. Actually, I'll wait for a few folks to join before I get started. A few more folks to join. All right. Okay. Cool. All right. So Finatra is something that we use at Twitter to build web services and web applications. So I'm basically just going to go through and create a project where we're going to create a simple to-do backend. It's not going to do anything special other than we're going to create a data model and we're going to ingest requests and do something very simple. So with Finatra, you can create an HTTP server or a Thrift server. I'm sure most of you are familiar with HTTP servers, so when you create a Node.js application with Express, that's an HTTP server. There's also a Thrift server. So Thrift is a binary protocol. So what that looks like is there's an object that you create in Thrift, and then that object gets broken down into bytes. We call that serialization. And then it sends the request over the wire. And then when your server receives it, it deserializes it and unpacks it. The benefit of that is type safety and a few other things that come along with Thrift. And you can compress the Thrift to send a smaller packet over the wire, so that can impact latency and a few other things. So like I said, I'm just going to start out by creating a simple to-do app. And all this documentation is at the Twitter's GitHub page, /Finatra. So there's a few things that you're going to need to have. You're going to need to have IntelliJ if you want to follow along, I'm just basically going to go ahead and build this, and then you can go back and ask any questions you have or anything like that. All right, so I already did. So I have my IntelliJ right here. So I'm going to create a new project. I already tested this out, so I'm just going to do it again so that you folks can see what it looks like. All right, so a new project is going to be a new Maven project. I'm going to hit next, and then I'm just going to call it to-do. Or it could be a blog, it could be a to-do API. And I'm just going to hit finish. Say this window. And so this is all pretty straightforward. And let's see. All right, so I'm going to need to add some dependencies. So I'm going to look at this, and we see that there's like a nice Maven dependency that you can pull in for Finatra. So I'm just going to take this one, the Finatra HTTP, and then I'm just going to copy that here. So you actually have to create a dependencies tag. So dependencies, you can think of this exactly like a package.json file that you would otherwise use in like Node.js or something like that. So you add this dependency, and then that's one dependency you need. So something that you also need, but you can get through IntelliJ, is you're going to need Scala, specifically Scala version 2.12, I think, or maybe not. Let's see. So I set this up, and let's see, SDKs. Yes, global libraries, yes. So you're going to need Scala SDK 2.12.12. The only problem with this is that you're going to need, you can get this through IntelliJ. So if you have IntelliJ, you can add this library by just clicking the plus sign, and you add the Scala SDK here. All right, and it'll download it for you. Cool, awesome. So I already have that installed, and so I'm just going to hit this nice little refresh button that builds the Maven project for you, and it's just going to take a couple of seconds, and it's doing some work down here. I think it's done. Awesome. And I just want to rearrange. So in your directory structure in IntelliJ, you have the project directory. So you have your to-do API, and then source, main, and then your tests, and you have like an equivalent, a Java directory in source, and then you have a Java directory in tests. And so presumably when you create tests for your application, they're going to go inside of this Java tests directory. Okay? So now I'm actually not going to write it in Java. I'm just going to create a new directory, and I'm just going to call it, inside of main, I'm going to call it Scala. Okay? And I'm going to do the same thing in tests. So new directory, Scala. Oops, like that. And so now you have to actually go in and say that, tell IntelliJ that that directory is a module in your project. So you would go to project structure, modules, and then inside of here, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the folder, and then you're going to say it's a source. And so you'll be able to you reference this file. IntelliJ will look in this folder for source files. You can do the same thing in the equivalent test directory, like that. All right. So I'm just going to hit apply and then hit OK. All right. So now we've got our server kind of configured, or we've got our project kind of configured. So let's take a look at the documentation for Finatra again. So we have those dependencies, and so let's take a look at this HTTP server. All right, so, and they have some nice documentation here and everything. A really cool thing that we'll show you in this tutorial is like when you build an HTTP server, Finatra, if you have a data model that mimics what your JSON body is supposed to look like, it will deserialize that into the expected types without you having to do anything. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but like that, it's a really powerful way to do things. So in Scala, you have this is how you define a server. So you basically say class example server extends HTTP server, and then you override this configure HTTP, and you pass in a router. So this router is what is going to be looking for filters and controllers and stuff like that. So when you have a filter, what a filter does is it allows you to, on a per request basis, run some logic before it hits your business logic. So for example, if you have a protected server-side route, you might want to do some authentication inside of a filter before you get to the actual request controller. All right, so I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so I'm just gonna, it's gonna look very similar to this, but back in IntelliJ, I'm gonna create a new package, and I'm gonna call it com.example.todo like that. Oh, com.example.todo. Interesting. So new package com.example.todo. There we go. Okay. So now I have this nice directory. So what I can do, actually, you know what I need to do? I need to fix the project structure again. I need to go into source, main, whoops, Scala, and I need to add that to sources as well. Okay, and I'm just going to hit apply. So now when I hit, I can say, oh, so I'm going to add a new file, and I'm just going to call this server.scala. And I add that to my GitHub, or my Git, and I say, so it's going to ask me to set up the Scala SDK, and then you pull in the global library that you need. And then it's not going to yell at you from now on when you try to create Scala files. All right, so when you create a server, you have to just define a package. We're going to say package. Let's see, com.example.todo. All right, whoops. To do is a bad kind of thing because it like auto types it for you. All right, so I'm going to say class server extends HTTP server like that, right? And it's going to pull in that dependency, and you want Finatra. Okay, so now it has this like red underline that says, all right, I need you to implement the method configure HTTP router. So I'm going to implement that method. Okay, so now when I implement that router, I'm basically saying, I'm going to say router, and then when we look at the methods, it's saying you can add a controller, you can add a filter, you can add a whole bunch of other things. All right. So we don't necessarily need to filter anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to need to add a controller. So a controller you can think of as the logic that's going to, you can think of it as your API definition. Okay. So so this is our basic server definition, but now I'm going to define our data model. So for a to-do app, let's see. For a to-do, I'm going to create another package, and I'm going to say to-do models. And then inside of models, I'm going to create a new Scala class called to-do. And it's going to be a simple case class. So case classes are super cool if you're not familiar with it and you've done JavaScript or Java or whatever. Case classes just are a class that gives you additional functionality on top of a regular old class. So it allows you to do some pattern matching, and it allows you to do, it automatically implements equals and hash code if you're familiar from Java. So it's a really useful way to like define classes. And it has getters and setter methods and stuff like that. So a to-do is going to have like a title, and the type is going to be a string, and then it's going to have a description. It's going to be a string, and then let's say it has a date. So we're going to define the date and time as just being a long. So we're just going to say due date or something, and it's going to be a long like that. So, and this is all you really need to do to define your data model. So let's just clean this up a little bit. Whoops. Like this. Like that. Okay. All right. So it's pretty straightforward. So now I'm going to create another package, and I'm going to call it controllers. All right. So I'm going to say to do, like I'm going to create a new class, and I'm going to call it to do controller, like that. All right, and then this controller is going to extend base controller, like that. All right, so in Finatra, or in Scala, it's super easy to define routes. So you can just say like get, and then the path, and then you define a function that says, you know, like the request body or something like this, right? And then inside of here, you can like respond with something simple like hello. So by the way, in Scala, you don't need to explicitly call return, so you don't need to actually do stuff like this. You can just, it's implied, the return is implied here. Okay? So now the neat thing about this is, so let's say we have an in-memory list of oh, let's see. Okay, so sorry, I'm not responding to questions. So hello, this is actually, what is actually dependencies? Okay, so dependencies, you can think of them as your like package.json. So your package.json is going to have like some list of things that tells your application what it depends on. So this is just a Java's version of handling dependencies, right? So when you handle those dependencies, well, when you need those dependencies, you just include them in a pom.xml, which is how a Maven project is built. And so then you run like Maven install, which is the equivalent of running like npm install or something like that. All right. Hey Danny, how's it going? I'm glad to see you tuned in. I appreciate you taking the time. So I'm not making anything super revolutionary here, but it's just a simple to-do controller API. So now I have, let's say, for example, I have a list of to-dos. So I'm just going to say val to-dos is mutable. Or actually, I'm just going to make it a type java.util.list of to-do. All right, and then I'm just going to say new java.util.arraylist. All right. So, and you don't need semicolons in Scala. So anyway, so I'm using a Java version of a list just because it's mutable, and there's like a whole bunch of other good reasons that I want to use that just for this tutorial. But typically, you'd want to use the Scala version of the list. All right. So now, so we have a get route. That's just, so in this case, I just want to dump the to-dos. Like this. All right. And I'll even make it a little bit simpler. I'll say toString. Like that. All right. And then post. So the cool thing, like I said, about Finatra, it does some sort of implicit body parsing based on the object that you want to parse. So for example, if I say post, and then in here I say the type that the post is just going to be to do, and then the type is to do. So now in this method, what I can do is I can just say todos.add to do, like that. All right. So super simple API. So I just added a get and a post route. So what this post route is going to do is going to take it, it's going to expect it to do, and then we're going to add it to the list, and then we can query that list by just, or actually, you know what, I'm just going to return like to do added successfully. Cool. And then that's going to return a response back from our server. And we're not actually going to use the request, so you can actually do stuff like this underscore, basically saying, for any request that comes in, I don't care what the parameters are, I don't care anything about the request, just return the to-dos. All right? All right, so now let's jump back over to our server code, and our server has this configure HTTP, right? So Finatra is built heavily with dependency injection. I can cover that now. Actually, you know what, I will cover it because it's kind of important and it's not like super hard to understand, I don't think. So let's say I'm going to create a new package, and I'm going to call it modules. All right, so inside of modules, I'm going to say, create a new class and call it to do controller module. All right, and I'm just going to make it an object. So an object in Scala is like in a pre-instantiated, like it's like a singleton. So you can think of it as like you can just call methods directly on it. So think like all the stuff that's inside of here is defined technically as static. So you can just call methods on it. So I'm going to say it extends what we call a Twitter module. So Twitter modules are a juice module. So Google wrote a dependency injection library that allows you to build a dependency graph. So that dependency graph is useful for when you want to expose certain bindings to your application. So let's say I want my server to depend on my controller, but there are other parts of my code that also depend on that controller. I don't necessarily want to instantiate different versions of that controller all over my code. So dependency injection allows me to reuse that one instance of a controller. So if you want to see what this looks like, I can just say You know what, actually, do I want to do that now that I think about it? Yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say at provides. So I'm providing a binding to the juice graph, and I'm going to say at singleton. So singleton is basically saying I only want one of these, and then I'm going to define a function called def provides controller, and then it's not going to take any parameters, but it's going to return a to-do controller like that, and it's going to be like this, and I need to import, and I'm just going to say new. I can just say new to-do controller, right? So in reality, like I could have just not injected this into the juice graph, but and just instantiated it directly, but you can imagine a situation where your controllers actually depend on other things, right? So if it depends on, like, so a to-do controller, instead of having like an in-memory list of to-dos, it might store it in a database. So it's going to need to have some sort of database read and write API, okay, that gets passed into the controller. So you can, like, dependency injection is very useful when you have things like when the controller, for example, might depend on something else, and you want to make sure it's properly configured. All right. So how do I use this now? This module now. So this is pretty straightforward. So you go to your server, and so HTTP servers have this function that you can override. So it's called override def modules, like this. So this function says, tell me what modules you would like to compose this server from, right? So in this case, I just want to compose it. I want to append a model of to-do controller module. I think I need to do like plus colon or colon plus. Yeah, there you go. So this just appends one module to the list of modules. All right. Cool. So now when I say controller, like when I want to add a controller to the router, I can just say router dot add, and then I can tell it what class I'm looking for. So I can say to do controller, not the module. I want the actual implementation that is provided. So instead of actually instantiating the controller here, instead of just doing, for example, this, instead of saying new to do controller, which is completely legal, I'm instead telling the router to look at the dependency graph and pull out the to do controller. So where this is coming from is it's going to pull it from this to do controller provider method. Okay, it's like very convoluted way of just instantiating objects that you might need for your server, but it's really useful. Like, trust me, when your application gets really, really big, you want to use Juice to kind of help organize how your application is going to be laid out. All right, cool. So now, so your router is defined here, and you say, I have a controller that's going to handle HTTP routes that come in, right? So now you need to kind of say, you have the ability to define I think it's default admin port. So the default admin, so in Finatra there's an admin port, which gives you a nice view of an admin dashboard, and then there's also an HTTP port that tells you where your HTTP requests are going to come in. All right, so in this case, what we're going to say is I just want it to be on port 8000, okay? And then I can override default HTTP port. Wait, I don't know if that's the right function. Hold on. Default HTTP port. Really? Okay. So I'm just going to say it's going to be 8888. All right. Okay. So now, and then there's this function called post warmup. And I know all of this because I work with it pretty much on a daily basis, but I just want to show you what this kind of looks like. So on post warmup, after post warmup, it's a good way to like print out to the screen the ports that you're working with. So like, so I'm just gonna call super after post warmup, and then print line admin port. Actually, you can do this. Admin port of default admin port, and then print line default HTTP port is, actually I should throw an S here, and I'm just going to do it in line like that, default HTTP port like that, and then I can just say print line service started up successfully. Cool. All right, awesome. So, and now, so like I said before, there's these things in Scala called objects. So an object is like an instantiated version of the class that has its own main. I'm not a Scala expert, so don't quote me on any of this, but basically you could do like, you have to say, like this server doesn't have a main method that you're supposed to use. So you're basically supposed to say object server main extends server. So now you have this nice little play button. So it gives you a main method inside of an object. All right, cool. So let's run this and see if it starts up. Let's see. It's building. Awesome. So it's yelling at me. Why is that? So I think I did something wrong here. Okay. Actually, let me see something. I think I misconfigured the project. So I don't actually think that needs to be a source folder. And so com.example.todo.controllers. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna fix some of these imports. Hold on. No, okay. Let me fix this package, yeah. So it's com.example.todo.controllers. Yeah. So now com.example.todo.controllers. To-do controller, right? Oh, duh, because I gotta change this package. All right, com.example.todo.controllers. All right, so I can close this. This fixes that, and let's import that and import that. So let's see. It should compile now. Let's see. Let's see if it works. Nice. Yeah, so the problem that I had was I defined the to-do directory as a sources module, so things were all package relative to-do, which isn't quite right. So I had to remove that and then rename all the packages that the files are in. And it looks like I have So let me just get rid of this, because I'm not really sure that that's the right way to do that. There's like a port parsing exception that I got. And cool. So our service has started up. So that means our juice bindings work properly. All right, so now I'm going to open up Postman. So Postman is a really cool tool for you to test your backend APIs. You don't have to have like a front end to do it. All right. So my default HTTP port is 8888. Don't save. All right. So if I do a GET request, it should just return me an empty list. All right. So nice empty list. All right. So now if I say post, let me just create another one. And I say localhost 8888, and then add a request body, raw, and then it's going to be JSON. All right, so let's remember that our model expects a title, a description, and a due date. All right, so let's say title is a buy groceries, and then description is like milk, eggs, cheese, what's something else? Cereal? Yogurt. It's a lot of dairy here. Alright, and then due date. And let's, it's not valid JSON. So due date is, typically this would be like the long, like time since like 1970 as a long or something ridiculous like that. So, but I can just put whatever I want. Let's say 15. And I hit send. Oh, get request, right. This needs to be a post request, and I hit send, and it didn't give me anything back. So let's see what the get request gives me. Okay, so there's something wrong here. Maybe this needs to be a string. That doesn't seem right though. All right, so we have a bug, as we always do. So let's see, print line to do. Actually, print line in the post route. All right, so unfortunately you have to restart the server. I'm sure there's a way to like hot reload, like similar to node mon, but unfortunately I haven't figured that out yet. Let's see. All right, cool. So start it up. Let's run our get request, nothing, and let's run our post request. So it's not doing anything here. Interesting. So there's something wrong with parsing this. I wonder why though. I wonder if it's like has to do with this. So let's just do that, and then let's remove the due date and see if that will fix it. Oh, actually, you know what I think the problem is? I think I need to do like content type. Yeah. So I think I need to add a header and say content type is application JSON, like that. And let's hit send. Still nothing, huh? Wonder why. Alright. Let's rerun. Interesting. Application JSON. And my request body. Due date. Do I still have due date over here? Whoops. Due date. Due date. Description, title. Did I spell those right? Title, description. It's a string. Alright. So I hit send. Nothing. It's giving me a 500. So internal server error. I wonder why. Oh, wait a second. Hold on. I don't think this is the problem, but let me fix this package here. So this is com.example.todo.models, and then here, and let me just auto import that. So, and then, you know, instead what I'm going to do is say request, and the type is going to be a request. And I'm going to print the request. And I'm just going to comment that out, and then hit rerun. Okay, so the server started up. Let's run get just to make sure. Cool. And we get, let's see, let's send this. Nice. Really? Did I do anything different? Oh, well, I did change the package to be the right thing, so maybe that was it. Weird. So now, let's do that. We don't need to oh, yeah, because I'm logging the request. So why didn't it convert it? Okay, so let's take a look. Whoops. Let's take a look instead at the request body. So it's a request.get param, and then we're going to say title. I mean, those items should be, so we're hitting the route properly, so those items should be in the params. So it might just have something to do with how, hello? So it might just have something to do with how it's getting parsed. Ah, so it's null. Right, because of param, yeah. Let's see. Curious why that one to do. All right. Let's rerun. Oh, yeah. I wish I could make C++ videos. I mean, sure, I can make something, but again, I haven't written a lot of C++ recently. I wonder why. Alright, so let's take a look at this. So in Finatra, they allow you to, they talk about JSON parsing. So JSON integration with HTTP routing. Okay, so let's say a post request with has the following JSON representation. Okay, so now I define a request, a case class group request, no validation, and then you have a case class. So then when using a custom request case class, Finatra will parse the incoming request body into the case class using the server's configured Scala object mapper. Similar to get request, suppose you want to handle a post with the following JSON. So you just define tweet IDs. I see. So what am I doing wrong here? All right, because I defined a I appreciate that. Yeah, I honestly haven't written C++ in so long, folks. I'm sure I could pick it up, but maybe I'll give it a try. And I know that tutorial definitely needs some updating, for sure. So it might be in the pipeline. I've just been so busy with work, folks, and I wish I could, and I have a family, so I can't exactly devote all my time to making YouTube as much as I'd like to. But maybe we'll see. Okay, so where were we? All right, so I defined a to-do, the case class. It has a title. Now, let's just double check again. Name, and the type is a string. Yeah, so maybe is something being parsed wrong? Oh, maybe we can't. Maybe I can't do that. Maybe I have to do this. No. Interesting. So I wonder why. So title string, description string, title description. And I'm just going to restart and see what happens. Alright. Oh, no comma. And let's send. Okay, so there's definitely something wrong, something going on with how I was parsing the JSON with the age or whatever, so, or the due date. So that worked fine. So now if I call a GET request, and I call GET, why isn't it returning anything? To-dos. Oh, not adding the to-do. Alright, so I'm just going to get rid of these. And actually, let me just share this on. Alright, hold on one second. Alright, cool. So if I rerun this, awesome. So the server started up, and when I send a GET request with no tweet or no to-dos, it sends me something back blank. And then if I add one, cool. And then I call a GET request again. Cool, it returns me a to-do. Nice. So, and then with the title and then the string representing the items I need to buy. Awesome. So that's pretty cool. And then I can add another one. So let's add another one. Exercise. And then we call it don't skip leg day. And I send it. Cool. So I added another to-do. And then I call GET request again, and it has 2 to-dos. Awesome. Cool. So like I said, the problem, there's a huge problem with this API, right? Because like when you can't just have a list of in-memory to-dos. Because like every time the server goes down, the to-dos are gone, right? So you need to add some sort of persistence layer. So the way that I'm going to implement a persistence layer is I'm just going to maybe write to a file. Can I do that? Let's see. So let's just add a new file, and we're just going to call it, in the resources directory, we're going to call it to-dos. All right. So now, to-dos.json. All right. So in this file, it's just like an empty JSON file. And so this is where dependency injection is going to come into play, and it's going to be really helpful. So let's say I create an initial to do, like the to do, like I'm just going to copy, and I'm just going to say this. So in this JSON is just going to be to-dos like this, and it's just going to be a list of to-do objects. So I'm just going to paste this in like this. All right, cool. So that's one to-do. So now I need to actually load these to-dos at application startup, or else there's going to be a little bit of a problem. All right, okay, so now I have this controller, but now I need to actually get my to-do loader, right? So I'm just going to create a new Scala class, and I'm going to call it to-do loader. All right. So this is going to be pretty straightforward. So the to-do loader is just going to be a class that has a single method. It's going to be def apply, and it's just going to return me a java.util.list of to-do. I'm just going to import that, and then so the way this is going to work is I'm just going to read the file from the resources. So I'm going to say val file is equal to new file of I'm just going to use java.io because I'm not really too familiar with file.io in Scala. So it's just basically going to be a new file, and then you're going to say, I think it takes an input stream, so I can say this.getClass.getResource as stream, and then the name is just going to be todos.json, like this. Now, does file have like a constructor with so does it have a constructor with an input stream? Can I not do that? Alright, so I'm going to do a quick Google, create file from input stream, or actually Scala object mapper. So if I just want to, sorry for the big screen, I see. Alright, so what I'm trying to do now is I want to be able to read that JSON file and parse it into to-do objects. So, let's see. So I think I can say object mapper Scala object mapper, like that. And so inside of this apply function, I'm basically just going to say object mapper dot parse. Can I? Does it? Yeah, it does have an input stream. That's what I thought. And then you want to parse it into a. So unfortunately, I need a new Scala class called todos. And it's a case class that is a java.util. I'm sorry. Todos is a java.util.list of to-do. Like that. And I think I can do this as a to-dos. Yeah, and instead of a list like this, I'm just going to return a list of to-dos, or just to-dos like that. And then in here, I'm actually just going to make this a Scala list because I think it'll actually parse it properly. All right, and then in my controller, is just going to be type to-dos, and then alt, and then, so this is going to get really cool because I'm going to get a chance to show you, well, I'm not really going to get a chance to show you what dependency injection is going to do, but actually, yeah, I am. So what you're going to do is, I'm basically going to say loader, to-do loader, like this, and then is going to be equal to loader dot apply, like that. So now in my to-do controller module, so my to-dos now depends on a to-do loader. So what I'm going to say now is @provides @singleton def provides loader, and this isn't going to take any arguments, and it's going to be a to-do loader. It's going to be equal to a new to-do loader. And does this take anything? Hold on. Yes. Actually, this does depend on something. So this is a object mapper, Scala object mapper, like that. And then I'm just going to pass an object mapper. So I think Finatra gives me an object mapper for free in the juice graph, or it has a default constructor which allows me to, which juice will just create it for you. So now this to-do controller provider method depends on a to-do loader, like that. So now whenever the to-do loader, to-do loader, like that. So now whenever I need an instantiation of to-do controller, it's going to read this provider method or read its dependencies and say, oh, okay, now I need a to-do loader in order to create this. So it's going to look for a provider or a binding that's going to provide a to-do loader, which is this function. So now this function is going to say, oh wait, I actually need a Scala object mapper. So it's going to go off and try to find a Scala object mapper. So when it finds that, it's going to return a to-do loader, and then it's going to return a to-do controller. So you can think of it as a graph. It's a dependency graph that you are topologically traversing. So when I say topologically, you are looking for the dependencies that don't have any other dependencies. So those are your, I don't forget what they're called, like 0 and degree nodes in your graph. And then those are your starting points. And then after that, you're just basically topologically traversing to the bottom, which at the bottom is your server. So your server is the last node in your juice graph, and then when your server starts up, it depends on all these other modules and all these other bindings. So it will start from the bottom up and go up the graph till it finds the terminal nodes, and then traverse back down and finally create your server. At least that's how I think of it working, and logically, if I were to build a dependency framework, that's how I would do it. But anyway, so that was just a big digression. So now I have this to-do controller and a to-do loader. So I look at my to-do loader, I have some unused dependencies. Yeah, nice. Okay. So this object mapper is going to try to parse this. I think I need to get class loader. Yeah. Is going to try to parse the to-dos from this JSON file, which is this exercise don't skip leg day. And then when it does, when it does, it's going to try to parse them into a to-dos object. So the to-dos object is a list of to-dos. And so in our case, we have a list, and the key is to-dos. Whoops. Like that, and then it's going to take every to-do and create a list of them, like that. All right, so that's one thing. So now what I need to do is, to-dos. So I can add a function. So add def add to-do. And then it's just going to return nothing, so unit. And then all it's going to do is going to say to-dos plus or colon plus do. Gosh, another poor reason as to why I should name those like this. Actually, can I? Is it plus plus? Nope, it's not right. See, this is kind of why. How about I do mutable? So in Scala, all the types by default are immutable, meaning you can't modify them, so you create copies. So I think this is going to work. So if I say to-dos dot mutable dot list buffer, really? Actually, hold on. If I just make it a sequence, yeah. And then to-dos dot add dot plus to-do. Or, sorry, not the best at Scala. Sorry, folks. Yeah, okay, so this will append it, which is fine. All right, so now in our controller, whenever we want to add one, we can have this add function do it for us. All right, and it generates the toString. Okay, so let's see if our server starts up. I have a feeling it might not, but we'll see. I have a feeling like this is not okay. So maybe it's to do. No. To-dos, sorry. Oh. I know. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Nice. All right, so let's see if it starts up. Wow. Oh, cool, it worked. All right, so let's see. So exercises should be there by default without me inserting anything. Nice. See, it's an array buffer, exercise, don't skip leg day. Awesome. So now what I'm going to do is, I should actually write to the file before the server shuts down. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to add another one. Actually, I'm not going to add another one just yet. So now I'm going to write it out to a file. Def dump unit is equal to, and then it's going to take in to-dos, this, and I'm going to say object mapper dot write as string write to file. Let's see. So I Google things too. So write to resource Java. All right, write to file. Input stream reader, so that's reading, and print writer. Really? This is it? Okay. So, all right. Let's just call this resource. Now resource is equal to d like that, and I'm just gonna say resource. And okay. So now writer is equal to new print writer of new file, I think it was. And then I'm just going to say resource dot get path. Just double check. This dot get class dot get resource. Oh, I see. All right. Get resource. This dot get class dot get resource. To-dos.json and dot get path. All right, and all right. So I'm going to say print, or so writer dot write object mapper dot write pretty string and to-dos. Dope. All right. So, and then I need to call dump from somewhere. So, how about I dump it to this file here? So I'm going to say loader dump to-dos. Like that. All right. Let's restart. Shoot. Alright, I'm gonna have to go in like 10 minutes, but thanks for those of you who tuned in. I mean, this has been fun. I might do this more often. Alright, so when I say get, it returns don't skip leg day. Alright, so now I'm gonna add that groceries one. Groceries, and let's just say wine, cheese. Alright, and I'm gonna say send. Uh-oh. Right, I didn't close the file. Alright, so let's try that again. Alright, so let's run get. Oh, hasn't started up yet. Okay. And then let's run post. And it's not printing. There's probably some sort of like IO exception. Get resource returns a URL. Can let's see. This isn't quite working for me. Right into a resource. Class.get class loader. I feel like I need to throw that in there. Alright, let's give it a shot. So, alright, so it's written successfully, or started successfully. Alright, so it's got that, and dope. Okay, so to do added successfully, so that means I actually wrote to the file, and no I didn't. Maybe, let me write a new. Wait. Oh. I don't think this is the right function to do this. So I think I actually need to do object mapper dot write Right, pretty string. Hold on. It takes in any object and dumps a string. So hold on. Let me just do this. Print line object mapper dot write for the string to use. I'm just going to say this. Okay. Wait. Hold on. Wait. What? To-dos. Hold on. So in the controller, am I not adding them? Okay. Yeah, sorry. You know what? I don't really know the Scala-Based API that well, so lowercase j. Unfortunately. Oops, java.util.list. There we go. Alright, so I'm just going to say to-dos add to-do. Simple. Alright, and this is going to go away. And to-do loader should still load it into the Java util list. Alright, let's see. Let's wait for the service to start up. And there we go. Look at that. So I wasn't, this is a Scala API, Scala-Based API that I'm not as intimately familiar with. So now, wait, what? It didn't overwrite the file? Huh? What am I doing wrong? To-do loader. Let's see. Maybe I'm throwing an exception, and I don't know. So let's see. Try catch case E is a type IO exception, I think. Exception. Print line e.getMessage. And then finally, writer.close. Right? That? Or gosh, I am rusty on this. So, because writer is in the scope. I don't know. I'm just going to let the memory leak for right now and see what happens. Oh, but I still need like writer.close here. So I'm just going to stop. I don't know how to play again. Alright, so now I'm going to send this. Awesome. So it. Wait, what? Hold on. Why? Why did this? Why is this twice? What? What? Okay, you folks saw that, right? Like, why is this here twice? What? Alright, so I have add, and I only add it once, and I dump it to a file. So first, let me call get. Alright, let's restart the server. This is super weird, folks. Yeah, I don't know. Alright, so first things first, let's call get. It should only have, like, based on what's in this file, it should only have don't skip leg day, right? So then, oh, see, so what is happening? Why is this happening? That's super weird. Why isn't the file? Resources. Weird. Huh. So for some reason it is working. Like when I call get, it has all three in there. But then, is it storing it somewhere else? Weird. Alright, so let me add another one and then see. Yeah, you know, restarting the server should do it, but it's, let me just add a different one. So let's say, what's another to do? Get oil changed. Don't forget coupon or something. Don't forget coupon. Hit send. Okay, alright. Now, we see it's here. So I'm gonna hit stop. Or I'm just gonna hit restart. And what? Alright, so let's just run get. It should not, well, again, like, we all see this, right? We all see that the service starts off with this empty list. Or not empty, it just has one item in it. And then the loader, just, so this is equivalent to just like opening this file. Unless like this is just stored somewhere else, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Alright, well, oh wait. Okay, yeah, so I'm just gonna hit run, and it's gonna be there, right? So there's something that we're missing. So let's see. Resources file. Resources file is it is not updated, but is not updated in IntelliJ, but is reflecting changes in code. This is this is not how you. Oh wait, what? No, this is not it. This is not how you Google a question. Oh, wait, changed. It was not IntelliJ's fault. Turns out somebody messed up server. That's Tomcat though, you know. What? No, it's not Tomcat. Alright, let's see if I can click on the same answer 4 different times. Maybe IntelliJ is doing something super weird with like keeping the file state or something. yeah, let's just rebuild the project. Let's just stop and rerun. Yeah, not quite sure, but we do have persistence, folks. I'm not quite sure if I'm doing something incorrect here. But yeah, so anyway, long story short, this is how you build something in Finatra. It's super simple, super easy. Um, this is really useful. Like I know a big problem that Node.js developers and Express developers have is determining that if the types of the entities are what you expect from the request body. So this is a good way of Finatra being type safe. So you can say I expect it to be a string, and I expect it to be a string. Couldn't really figure out what the bug was with the long today, but I used an int before in like a previous example or previous time I tried this out, and it worked fine. So I'm not quite sure what the problem was there, but yeah. So I gave you a high-level overview of juice and dependency injection. It takes a lot of people a long time to get it and to understand what's actually happening. But I think if you get an understanding of how it works, I think it will serve you well in the future. Let me know if you want me to do a longer tutorial on juice. Yeah. So that's Finatra. And then one last thing I wanted to show you, which is actually pretty cool, is the admin port. So admin, so let's go to localhost 8000. So cool. So it gives you an idea of like all the stats that can be going on your server. It tells you who your server is connected to, the servers that are listening, metrics, miscellaneous, performance, and then like all types of logging and tracing and pinging your server and stuff like that. So there's these servers are endlessly configurable, and they give you this like monitoring dashboard and admin dashboard for free, which is awesome. But yeah, this is how we build stuff at Twitter, and it's like super. This is very, very juvenile example, and it can get way more complicated than this. Like when you're dealing with futures and when you're dealing with like asynchronous multi-threaded programming, it gets pretty complicated. But at the high level, all you're trying to do, remember, with a backend is take in a request and return a response. And then in between there, you might have to talk to a database, or you might have to, and you might have to do some other information or do some other work. But that's all you're really trying to do is take in a request and then serve a response. And there's so many different ways to do that. Some people choose Java, some people choose Node.js and Express, some people choose Python and Django. But at the end of the day, if you know what you're trying to do, whether it's create a web API or do something else, it's all the same. All right. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and if you'd like me to do some more streams, I'd be happy to. I just have to go tonight because I have a couple of errands I need to run. But yeah, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, and if you like the video, please feel free to share. All right, thanks.